Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a minute. And I wanted to give you a few reminders for the conference before we dive into the presentations. So in the chat, I've posted a link to our conference website and code of conduct. My name is Bree Kirsch, and I'll be the moderator for this session. So again, the code of conduct we will be adhering to for the conference is available on our website, and I've posted the link in the chat. Please reach out if you do experience any issues related to conduct via our email at genaiandlibraries@gmail.com. And please be sure your microphone is muted during Q&A. You can ask questions via the chat feature or the Q&A feature within Zoom. And the session is being recorded. You can enable captions by clicking on the Show Captions button at the bottom of the screen. The presenters for these 3 lightning rounds include Sonia Yaco from Rutgers University, Melissa Johnson from Southern Methodist University, and Cirrus Gunlock from Paul D. Camp Community College. Please join me in welcoming our presenters. And Sonia, when you're ready, you can share your slides and start your presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon. Libraries and archives are at a crucial juncture today. We have rich collections, an ever-expanding set of AI tools, more patron technical expertise than ever, and this provides us with a wonderful opportunity to develop new ways to mine our wealth. To explore this juncture, Rutgers University and Durham University, UK, conducted a research study evaluating about 30 AI products to improve access and enhance discovery. Our test data were the papers of William Elliot Griffis, whose family were educators and missionaries in East Asia from 1860s to the 1920s. This huge collection is heavily used by patrons in the UK, Asia, and the US, so adding more access is important. The tools we tested, and I was the main tester, included generative AI, as well as older technologies like natural language processing. They ranged in cost and in learning curve. At the easy free end was Bing. At the, oh my heavens, you need to really know how to program and fee for service was DALL-E's API. We picked from this large collection, we picked formats that were challenging to access and discover. A set of diaries that were handwritten, a typewriter-written biography, the photographs of Japan, which were largely undescribed, as I'm sure many of your photos are. Our strategies for mining this wealth were to get more out of text by making it more readable, to find insights in the text and photographs, and the particularly fun part, to connect the text back to the photographs. So the first strategy was to improve readability. By strategy, I mean it's the way we had of grouping all of the tools. So it wasn't just here that is, but to really understand how they could be useful. In addition to trying translation software, we transcribed handwritten material. We did about 5 different softwares ranging from eScriptorium, which did the best job, to ChatGPT, which didn't do a phenomenal job by itself. However, if you combine ChatGPT and the other software, the accuracy goes up dramatically. It's important to understand that there's 2 different issues. One is the numbers of accuracy and sort of the quality of it. You can see that with AM Digital, who's a vendor who was kind enough to do some test transcription for us, when they get it wrong, it's quite obvious. Obkerlacker knows is not a real word. Whereas with ChatGPT, it all is in English until you notice there's no elephant in that handwritten text. And that's sort of the elephant in the room. Transcription for typewriter written material is much easier. There are a lot more software choices, it's better accuracy. And things like Microsoft Outlook will do OCR. Google Lens, although it'll only do a page at a time, can do it as well. The Adobe Acrobat didn't do a great job. When we added ChatGPT, it did a better job. But these other ones did a great job all by themselves. Second strategy was finding insights. Text analysis is much easier to do when you've got a chance to suck out all the text from handwritten and typewritten material. We did things like sentiment analysis, topic modeling, topic grouping, clustering, named entity recognition, pulling out the names, places, and organizations. There's a lot of different software that will do it. This is an example of Voyant, which is a free package, and it does a very nice job at visualization. Here it's looking at both the biography and diary together. You can also add insights to the photographs by organizing them. This took some programming on my part, so we only had about 420 photos that I digitized. But I said, all right, give me a grouping, show me what looks the same. And it pulled these out. The third strategy, and this is the most fun, as I say, is connecting text to images. So you can start with just asking generative AI to describe a photograph. This is the photograph I've used throughout the presentation. And it not only understood that it was what sort of photograph it was, but could understand the kind of garments they were wearing, what it was made out of, and could take a guess at the what the people's expression looked like. This is going to be dicey, particularly in different cultural situations. But it still beats the heck out of small Japanese prints, which is what we had before. But you can do other things. You can add metadata to the images, whether it's keywords. Now here it looked at this image and it's very impressive, although I see that on the right-hand side, it does say Korea. So it got that one, that was a pass. But it did understand that it was 20th century Korea, not 19th century. But it can also do the Holy Grail. It can create mark records. Now, these are going to vary in quality, but this one I was pretty pleased with. All right, so that's a cool stuff, but let's try to kind of amp it up a bit. Let's find a way to link the text to the images and right back again. I wanted to find a way to illustrate some scenery that was in the diary. So first I went through and manually looked for a good description of scenery and picked this out. I also noticed that I could ask generative AI to go through and pull out paragraphs or sections that describe scenery. They did that, but I still like this one better. All right, so it described the text and it got it from this diary. So I asked it to generate an image. All right, well, that's a pretty cool image. And it seems like that's a reasonable match. It has chunks, these sails, it has garden, it has birds, mountains. All right, well, that's pretty cool. But you have to understand it's made up, right? Doesn't have any connection to reality. So let's instead have it match the generated images this generated image to the real photographs. And this took programming to do in Jupyter Notebook. But some of these you can see match the shapes. This one on the upper right-hand corner works best for me. Now let's see if it has any connection to the text. Well, I don't see any. I guess there's some gardens in there. You can see a whole bay. You can see mountains. Whether it's Yokohama or not, I don't know. And this is where humans need to get involved. But if you're looking for a starting point, maybe this is a way to describe some photographs, at least to give it a start. Maybe it's a way to illustrate text, maybe as a start. So what did we learn from this all? That AI has very meaningful uses. It's not just sort of a party trick. We can do this, that, and the other thing, but you can knit it together. That AI is really resource greedy. Infrastructure support is very necessary. Most of the testing was done by me. I'm an archivist, but I have 40 years of coding experience. I was backed up by a team of co-authors in computer science, games research, and digital humanities. Software is, whoops, boy, did I blew that one. Software is expensive and somebody's got to pay for it. It takes staff time and it requires human intervention. Someone needs to do, a subject specialist needs to do validity checking and make ethical decisions. What do you want to share with the cloud? What do you want to not? And finally, that the software is most effective when paired. That transcription software, if you do 2 passes through, you get much better accuracy. If you combine text analysis with image analysis, you can do far more interesting things. What can AI do with manuscripts at your library? What techniques could you apply? Well, you might want to start with easy things like transcription or translation. You might want to try the software Voyant for text analysis and visualization. Experiment with metadata, creating generative AI. I would definitely recommend partnering with some sort of technical staff, whether it's your supercomputer people, computer science department. You're going to need some sort of help with that end. I hope this session has provided you with some ideas of how you can use AI tools to open your collections and really share the wealth more fully. Thank you.
Now we'll switch over to Melissa.
All right, let me just share my screen. Okay, so I think I'm good with that. To move around windows with Zoom, sorry. All right, we'll go with this. Okay, so hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an instructional design and educational technologies librarian with Southern Methodist University. And I'm really excited to be here at the first Gale conference to share how we incorporated generative AI into our business information literacy instruction. So I have a poll for you all. I would like to know in one word how you would describe generative AI. So you can go to pollev.com/buslib to join, or you can scan that QR code. And hopefully the poll is working. It is? Okay. It's not loading. Well, if you want to just put your word in chat, we could do it that way too. That works.
It loaded for me. I had a pop-up box I had to close, so I'm not sure if that's what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, there might be like a pop-up box you have to do. And I'm going to switch over to the responses so that we can see what people are saying. All right, awesome. So yep, hallucinations, that's always a popular. Disruptive, fake, scary, intriguing, curious, unexplored. These are all great. Fraught, vocation. I don't know if it's splitting up words, so creative. Awesome. Dystopian. Yeah, some people call it robot overlords. I've heard some my colleagues use that term. All right, well, I'm going to move on because this is a lightning round, so you can keep adding to the poll. It's not going to stop. My one word is change, because I think generative AI is changing most everything we do, from how we work to how students approach research tasks. It's all around us. So let's see what GPT says kicked it off for us. And it took us down a curvy kind of road of how we could teach students to be better stewards of these tools that they're integrating into their daily lives. For us, sifting through business research was the key. Yeah, I think there is a lot of misunderstanding. We knew we wanted to apply backward design to the idea, so we started with the end in mind. We began with our overarching learning goals, including the big why. We determined how we could assess if those goals had been achieved, and then we planned out what that instruction would look like. And so to best demonstrate it, I want to walk you all through the sifting through business research workshop. So I'm going to switch over to the sifting and the Mentimeter. And a link to this is in the PDF that's attached on the resources of this session. So we start by sharing the goals for the session, including the big why, and in one word for sifting, it's credibility. We want students to stop and think before they share or reuse information. We explain that the session is a mixture of small and large group activities, and that each group is going to be responsible for turning in a worksheet at the end of our time together. We also explain that we're going to use the SIFT method to evaluate 3 different library databases, either Google Scholar, Library Search, which is our Primo tool, or Business Source Complete, which is a popular business database we use. And that we're going to start by using ChatGPT as our idea generator. So then we take students into the sifting guide that we created. And we walk them through what the steps of SIFT are, how we're going to use each one of them, and then we ask students to go into the SIFT exercise tab of the guide and download a copy of the Sifting Through Business Research worksheet, which we'll look at in just a little bit. And we also point out that the databases they're going to be using are linked on this tab as well. But back in Mentimeter, we asked students to vote on which of the 3 prompts they want to see entered into ChatGPT. Now, when this was last taught in spring of 2024, ChatGPT required you to have an account to use it, and we didn't want students to have to give up their privacy for a library session. So as the instructor, we logged in, and then we just all looked at the response on the big screen. All of our prompts start with respond in 150 words written at a college level and include 2 recent citations in APA style to the following question. And if you're curious which of the 3 prompts tended to be the most popular among our business students, it was the management styles and remote work options, probably because that's what they prefer. Then after students have had a chance to read through the ChatGPT response, we ask them to vote on how they feel about the credibility of it. And as you may expect at this point in the workshop, it tends to be pretty positive. We get lots of greats and goods. But then we pull up the SIFT worksheet as an entire group, and we work our way through the first stop. And we ask the students, who's the author? And most of them say ChatGPT. So then we follow up with, what do we know about ChatGPT? We get some shrugs. Some people point out it's generative AI. And so then we ask them, well, where did ChatGPT get this information from? And that's when we get more shrugs. Some students point to the citations that it generated. So then we ask them, well, what do we know about those citations? What do we know about those authors, those journals, those articles? Are these real? Do they exist? Or are they just made up? And so students are starting to see why it's important to sift our way through the information. Then I asked the students, would they be willing to hand in this response just as it is to their professor? And most of them say no. I say, what about your boss? More no's. And then this is the big one. I asked them, would you be willing to base a multi-million-dollar deal on this information just as it is? And because they're business students, that's when they stop and pay attention. So as a group, we take some time to brainstorm our own search terms and keywords that we could use as we investigate, find better coverage, and trace those claims. Um, and even though we could use ChatGPT to help us with this exercise, I like to do it with the students alone because I want them to make that connection that it's not just the original prompt, it's not our question, it's not the response, it's those citations that ChatGPT spit out that also need to be included as search terms. Then I break students out into small groups and I assign them one of those 3 library databases and give them some dedicated time to work their way through the rest of the steps in the worksheet. And while they're doing that, I'm walking around, kind of listening to what they're finding and answering any questions that pop up. And then after some dedicated time, I have them pull up this Padlet. And originally, when we go to the Padlet, there's only 3 columns they see, one for each of those library databases, Google Scholar, Library Search, or Business Source Complete. And I ask each group to answer these questions on the Mentimeter. What are its strengths? What are its weaknesses? How do they see it being helpful for their research? And so we take some time to talk about what they found in each of their databases, see if there's any similarities across the resources, and then that's when I add that 4th column, the ChatGPT column, and ask the students to answer that same question. Strengths, weaknesses, and how do they see it being helpful? And at this point in the workshop is where it's really eye-opening to see what students think about ChatGPT after they've had some time to dig more into it. And then back in the Mentimeter, oh, and I like using Padlet for that exercise because 1, I find that I get more responses from students, and 2, they tend to be more honest because it's anonymous, so nobody knows who's saying what. And then I ask them to do the same poll again that we did at the beginning. How do they feel about the credibility of the ChatGPT response? And here's where there's a big shift. Not so many greats or goods, more so-sos, and quite a lot of bads. Because oftentimes they found that those hallucinations, the citations were hallucinations, that the ChatGPT response at first glance looks pretty good, isn't actually quite as in-depth as what they could find in the databases. And so students are seeing in real time that ChatGPT isn't the solution, it's a tool. Then we do a quick recap of SIFT, what it stands for, why we used it, talk about the big why, and I remind everybody to turn in a copy of their worksheet because I like to look at their process at the end after the workshop is over. So my big takeaway with sifting is that the students who attended really do learn the benefits of why evaluating information matters, regardless of the form that it's in. Um, for me, sifting allows students the opportunity to play around with generative AI to learn what it can and can't do, but in a low stakes setting that's not tied to, say, a grade or job performance. We've had some success partnering with faculty to offer sifting as an extra credit option or as part of their regular library orientation. So I'd like to continue working with my amazing colleagues that I have in the business library to partner to find other faculty that we can partner with to have that external push to encourage students to attend. Now, a big challenge, as you all may expect, is that generative AI is constantly in flux. And so what works today probably won't work tomorrow. So as in the case of ChatGPT, there's that new version that just came out, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to work with sifting. So my current iteration of it is going to have to change. And I'm still contemplating what that is going to look like, if I want to continue using ChatGPT, or maybe I want to split off to say Perplexity or Copilot or Gemini just to see what students think and what those do. But overall, my sifting has been a great way for my library to generate change in our own business instruction. And that is all I have. So I want to thank you all so much for your time, and I'll be available for questions at the end.
And now we'll switch to Cirrus.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Skelmock. I am the coordinator of library services at Paul Camp Community College. And just to give a little bit of context about why this in particular was such a blessing of a tool for me to come across. We have two campuses that are about half an hour apart, and I'm the only full-time librarian. So I have to do a lot of training long distance. And we all know how cooperative our systems are about working the way we think they are. So I found Scribehow. It used to be just called Scribe, but something happened with the domain. And they do have a free and a paid version. There are some differences between the two. And first I'll show the free version, and then I'll show some of the differences on the paid version. So for the free version, it's a Chrome plugin. I don't know what other ones it actually works on other than Chrome. But from there, it's usual kind of plugin thing. And then you can go to whatever it is you want to get your screen capture. So say you want directions on how to access your library catalog and use it or whatever. It'll give you the directions with a circle on what you've clicked on, and we'll try to generate text for what you're supposed to do. And it will continue doing that as long as you keep doing things. And then you can, show off whatever you need to show off and so on. When you are done, you click complete capture, and it will just generate the screenshots and text for what it thinks you want to tell it to do. The text in particular is where it is usually wrong and needs updating, because it will put whatever you enter. So if you're entering your user ID, it will say to enter your user ID, not a user ID. So obviously some of those have to be corrected. There are options for adding alt text to everything. You can, if there are multiple things that need to be done on a page, you can duplicate a page, or you can even combine steps. So if it tells you to do takes too many clicks to do what is essentially one page, you can combine them, so on. And then once you're done editing, it gives you a form that can be shared by a link, or you email it, or you can have an get an embed code and embed it into most platforms, including LibGuides. So yes, it does work in LibGuides. If you want to put your guide for how to renew books in there or whatever. However, some things it doesn't do is if you want it to indicate more things, like those kind of screenshot editing and such are all in the Pro edition. So that's part of the paid one. Other things that for the Pro one, the Pro also will capture desktop. So say you need to do things that are on both that include like Excel and something. Once I do that, Scribe is going to capture everything I do on these different applications. And let's see, not in the right screen. And so then you can continue doing things, and it doesn't matter if it's the same browser or not. You can just do whatever you need to do for all of these different places. It's if anybody can't tell, we use Alma. And it will keep track of everything. And then when you are done, it's kind of, again, you stop it and it will show up in when it's ready, it'll show up in the same online workspace. Just have to wait for it to catch up. And then, but on these, this is one that I did previously. It's taking a little longer to upload. On these, when you go to edit them, you can edit your images, including moving the dot around, notating, add privacy screen stuff. So it'll screen things out of the directions and so on. Some of the things that I have found particularly useful with these is the share also allows for export into PDF, HTML, etc. PDF is the one that I use the most often so that I can save a copy of those directions onto our shared drives, and anybody who comes after that will have access to it. Again, can combine, copy, it'll do magic merge where it'll automatically merge things together, so on and so forth. Customization will let you, with the pro account, will let you brand everything. And these have saved me. This has saved me so much time. Since I create most of the training materials for the library, and there are so many training materials that need to be shown. I find videos very difficult to follow because I have to pause it and go back. And the screenshots, taking a screenshot, circling where to click, doing the text and all, is really time consuming. So this is just much, much easier and faster to get all of those saved up, so that you then have all your training documents. And if something changes in the future, you can just change those few screens that changed and merge things together, replace them, update them as you need to. So there's not you have to completely recreate the document again, which has happened to me and probably has happened to other people too. And that is just my really quick overview of Scribehow. And then I think Donna, and I think we are at, and my cat is deciding to Zoom bomb.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to all three of our presenters. I think I've learned a lot, and I think everyone else has too. I saw that Melissa answered a few questions in the Q&A, so if you want to check those answers out, you're welcome to. But if there are any other questions for any of our three presenters, please post them either in the chat or the Q&A feature within Zoom. We'd be happy to have them answer questions for you. So I'll give you a few moments to think about questions and put those in the chat or the Q&A feature. And just to reiterate for those that were asking, Melissa's slides are also attached to the conference page for this session as well.
And if anyone would like my slides, they can reach out to me via email. I'd be happy to send them.
Sonia, would you mind putting your email in the chat for people again too,
Yeah.
so that if they wanted that, it would be easily accessible? And I'm not seeing any questions so far. We'll give people, oh, here's one. It looks like it's for Cirrus. Approximately how much is the paid version of Scribe? Is it an individual or institutional subscription? And do you think it's worth the cost?
It's there are both individual and enterprise subscription plans. Mine is, I got the individual, and I want to say it's like 23 if you can put in that you're an educator. And yes, when probably the first week I got it, it saved me like 40 hours worth of work on creating instructions for how to do everything in RILS, ILL, all of that. And just not having to do that many screenshots was worth well more than the monthly subscription has been. I do pay for it individually because it is not something that my institution would cooperate on, but it's the headache. Not having that particular headache is more than worth it to me.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any additional questions at this point. I'll give people just another minute if they do have any final questions for our presenters. Meanwhile, I would like to thank each of you for sharing your knowledge with us and your experiences using the different tools or generative AI that we've talked about. And thank you, all of you, for attending the session today and the conference in general. Hopefully we'll see you at some of the other sessions as well.
Thank you, Bree.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
All right. Well, again, I'm not seeing any final questions, so I think we can end the session a little bit early. So again, thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the conference and the rest of your summers.